What's up, y'all? You are listening to For the Artists. Yes, I am your host, Melissa Sharee, and I am all kinds of excited, ecstatic. I feel privileged. I feel honored because I am speaking to the one and only Niya Wright today. And if y'all don't know who she is, well, you gonna know by the time we get time having this conversation. Let me just say that, okay? But I will tell you a little something about her, and then she can say hello. So she grew up loving television, and she dreamt of helping to bring stories alive that would inspire, entertain, and uplift the lives of people around the world. This is my kind of woman, y'all. You already know, okay? Now, to reach the dream, Niya left her New Jersey home at 14 years old to attend boarding school in Connecticut through A Better Chance, a nonprofit organization designed to offer better educational opportunities to underrepresented students of color. Niya attended Loyola Marymount University, beautiful campus. Okay, that's a shameless plug. As a communications major and theater minor, graduating with honors. Over her 4 years at LMU, she performed in stage shows and short films. She co-wrote comedy sketches, studied abroad, volunteered with the elderly. Oh my gosh, y'all, listen, she's a Renaissance woman. She then interned at ABC's General Hospital. Ooh, bring the drama. During her during her senior year, she was offered a position at the show after graduation and was promoted to writer's assistant 1 year later. In 2020, yep, the infamous 2020, Niya was hired by Netflix Animation as a script coordinator for the Emmy winning animated series Drop the Mic, Outta Twist, Scientist, co-produced by Chris Nee and the Obama's Higher Ground Productions. She went on to write several episodes for the series. She spends her time reading, spreading light where she can, and crafting stories that will spark hope and compassion in people's hearts. Niya, give it up. Say hello to the people.
Thank you so much. Hi, people. Oh my God, that was so lovely. It's rare that you ever hear someone read your bio to you. And you did it with such beauty. So thank you. That was so sweet.
Yes. Awesome. I love that. I love when people have that kind of response after I've heard their bio because you know what? We do a lot of things. We're constantly accomplishing things, moving forward, progressing, and we don't always see the progress, because we're so focused on the where we got to go to. Yep. So yeah, we need to sometimes do that for ourselves, like, hold on, let me just check in and look back at some of the things that I have done or that I'm doing.
See how
just to remind myself.
I think too is so important because I feel like, to what you were saying, I think it's so natural for people to want to look ahead. And sometimes we can always also be down on ourselves because we look ahead and we're like, we're not as close as we want to be. We're not where we want to be at this moment. But I think especially in those moments, you have to like take a second to remind yourself of like who you are. And that you didn't just get to where you are by accident. Like you worked hard and you just got to keep working hard. So I agree. Kind of sometimes reminding yourself of your accomplishments can help you to just keep pushing toward, whatever the end goal. But I'm a big believer in enjoy the journey. I'm all about that process.
Enjoy the journey. I love that. Remind yourself of who you is and who you are.
Yes.
You know what? I think that people tend to use that word journey so lightly. They're like, oh yeah. I mean, it's almost like a catchphrase that a lot of people know, they're aware of, they use it. I might just enjoy the journey. But then it's like, have you looked up the definition of journey?
That part, it's not quick. The journey, like the essence of journey is long, and I think in an era now where we have so much social media, it feels like you can get things or achieve certain things like in an instant, right? And so I think sometimes we have this false perception that like, oh, like getting to where I want to go is going to happen so quickly or so fast or so X, Y, and Z. But honestly, like the journey to get where you want to go is a journey. And honestly, bigger than that, it's like the journey of life. Like I think the life journey that we're all on is something that will continue beyond a career goal you have or a personal goal you have. And I think that's really important to like recognize. Like even if you get to like the highest career goal you could have thought of, you're still on a journey. Like this thing called life is not like, you know, a pause and stop kind of thing. Like you are on this journey forever. And I think recognizing that the journey will have its highs and its lows, but ultimately recognizing that like everything's temporary. Your highs are temporary and so are your lows. So just keep smoothing through, get through it. It's all gonna be good. Even when it feels like it's not at all.
Yes, yes. Okay, there was something that perked my ear when I read your bio, but real quick, there was something about the way that you just delivered what you said that made me think of something even larger, because you said like our journey, it's almost like you said, this is my interpretation, okay, girl? You was like, even when we arrive, the journey is not done, like it's forever. And it made me think about the eternal value of us moving on and moving forward.
Yes.
I don't know, there's something deep about the way you said that. It's like it transcends the naturalness of where we are now. Yeah. You know, like it literally really is a journey that is perpetual.
Yes. Yes. And I feel like that's such an important thing to remind ourselves of. And honestly, everything I'm going to probably be saying today are things that I have to remind myself about. So, and one of them is the fact that I believe the journey, there's just life be life, and like life can be hard at times, right? You know, we went through a global pandemic, you know, so much social justice, just upheaval. Like there's just so much going on in the country and has been. And so I feel like there's so many moments where it's natural to kind of just be like, oh my, like, is it going to get better? Like, am I going to get through it? Especially when you're in the lows. And that's where you really have to like remind yourself, like, this is temporary. Like what we're struggling through, what we're going through, whether it's globally, our country, our personal, you know, lives, like it's temporary. Like just hang in there. Like that's, I feel like if I leave this podcast or you or whoever's listening with nothing else, is just to remember that the hard moments are temporary, and just remember that you are on a journey, that even though it feels hard, it is not the end. You are not done. It is not over yet. Like you can keep going, and you just have to will yourself. Sometimes you need support, therapy. I love therapy. I think everyone should go to therapy just for a mental check, you know, just to see how things are going. Like you go to the doctor every year. So yeah, so I'm big on the journey. I'll try not to say it again, but who knows?
Yes, girl. Listen, if you say it again, it is what it is. You know what I mean? Because you can never have too many reminders. You know what I mean? Like you said, life be life in, and every day something comes up. Yes. And every day somebody really might be in the fight to like, just let me keep going. So I don't think we can do too much reminding in that area.
Absolutely. And to what you just said too about, you know, that fight to keep going every day. I think I really, you know, aspire myself to like really like strengthen my morning routines and like really get into like good habits that help to ground me during the day. Cause I have realized in life, you know, especially as it comes to the word trigger. I feel like the word trigger has been a word that we hear more in the zeitgeist, recognizing that there are people in the world who might trigger us unintentionally, but still, you know, do it nonetheless. And I feel like recognizing that in the moment, like recognizing that like you have to set the foundation for how you want to walk into your day, right? Like how you want to live in, whether that's your meditation, your reading, your lemon water, whatever it is to start you in that day. And so that way you're able to have a really strong armor when you go out into the world, and you might be hit with a trigger, or you might be hit with, you know, something you didn't see coming, right? And obviously the hope is that you just go through your day chilling, living your best life with the armor still intact. But I think it's important that you create that armor at the start of your day, so that if life happens to you when you didn't see it coming, like it does to a lot of us, you have protection, you know, the protection that you chose to put on yourself in the morning. So yeah.
Yes, queen.
I'm going all over the place sometimes, so feel free to raid me and like, girl.
No, there will be no reining in. Okay, we giving them all the good stuff. All the good stuff. You're already quotable. Okay, what did you choose? What did you choose to put on today that's gonna keep you protected? I love that. Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay, so I want to go back, because in your bio it said that at 14 you moved from New Jersey
Jersey.
Okay. Went to Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
And so that resonates with me because I left Washington at 13 and
Mm.
came to Cali. But we're not here to talk about me. But
Well,
I want to go.
to us, but
but
okay, yeah.
I want to go back to tell me about, do you remember that time? Do you remember the time?
Yes, I do. I do remember that time. It was such an incredible time in my life. The experience leading up to it. There were so many different loopholes and challenges and blessings. But yeah, so I ended up going to boarding school, and I actually, funny enough, I grew up a nerd. I loved school. I was the teacher's pet. Like I was the goody two shoe. Like I can't even hold it. That was and is me. And so when I was in middle school, I was a part of like a gifted and talented program, and my advisor there had told me about this boarding school program called the White Foundation initially, and it was this program that, like similar to ABC, helps minority students, underserved areas get better educational opportunities, whether it's, through boarding school and so, or day schools and that kind of thing. So, or I'm not sure about day schools. The White Foundation, clearly, as the story will progress, you will understand why I don't remember much about that, because I had applied to the program. And so when I found out about this program in boarding school, I was so excited. Honestly, I used to watch Zoe 101 when I was a kid. I like, you said, I loved television growing up, from soap operas to teen shows. Like I soaked it all in. And so when I was younger, I would watch Zoe 101. And I remember Zoe had this computer. Like everything about Zoe 101 was so pretty. Like the school was nice. Everyone had their own computer. Like it was just felt like this candy land in my 11-year-old brain. So once I found out from my teacher about like I could go to boarding school, because sometimes you watch TV as a kid, as much as you might want to think like, oh, I could do this thing. Sometimes if you don't see someone who looks like you doing it, you kind of might not necessarily believe it's true, or it's possible. And I think but I always was a hopeful person. So when my teacher told me about this, I was like, oh my Lanta, like this is my chance to be Zoe 101. And so I actually made a PowerPoint presentation for my parents when I was 11 to convince them for me to go to boarding school, because, honestly, before Zoe 101, you would hear boarding schools and television shows like about bad kids, or, they send like rich kids there who, either aren't doing good in school. You just felt like it was this kind of affluent thing, that wasn't really common of good girls, right? Good kids kind of a thing. So I remember talking to my parents and doing the PowerPoint, and it was very new to them, right? Because my parents are both of them are from the East Coast. Like they've never heard of boarding school. Nobody in their family had went to boarding school. And essentially, even when I was 11, it's this idea that you're going to send your kid away to, until you met them, strangers, right? Like my family didn't come with me. I went to a school and I lived with, girls who came from similar backgrounds than and we lived within the 1% of, this, town in Connecticut. So it was a very long process to get into boarding school. I'm not gonna lie, because I had the idea that I wanted to do when I was 11, gave the presentation to my parents. I have to say I have two of the best parents on the planet. Like they have always poured so much love into me and so much belief. Like I kid you not, my parents, if I told them I wanted to do something, they'd be like, absolutely, you can. Like even when I was younger and I was like, I want to be an actress and I want to be in Hollywood and I want to go to LA. And they were like, you got it, girl. Like, and that was such an amazing foundation, sense of armor as I think I navigated through life. And so they really believed in me, even though, they might have been scared or nervous or unsure about. And my mom would take me to all my tests and do all these, because we had to go on interviews. And so I applied to the White Foundation. I didn't get in. And I was so sad. I was like, oh my Lanta, like they didn't want me. And, I was probably end of 11, early 12 when I got that notice. And it was so sad. And I remember going to my mom and being just honest about how like I was hurt and I felt really sad that I didn't get it. And I'll never forget this. My mom told me, and before I preface this, I think it's really important the way that parents love on babies, love on children in hard moments while they're trying to navigate how do they deal with pain or rejection or disappointment. And so my mom told me, she was like, I know you're sad, baby. She let me have my feelings, but she wanted me to know that God had a bigger plan for me and that this wasn't the way to get to that, right? And she used Jennifer Hudson as an example. She was like, remember Jennifer Hudson was on American Idol and she did not win, but Miss Jennifer Hudson now at that point was in Dreamgirls and an Oscar winner, and now she's an EGOT. So sometimes rejection, it's God's protection, and also it is the thing that will keep you ready and available for what you really need to get to. Because I truly believe blessings and opportunities will not miss you. You know, your blessing isn't going to miss you. Like, I'm not into the thing of like, if my friend gets this or someone gets this, I'm like, oh, that could have been me, or that, like, like that was theirs. You celebrate, you uplift. Yeah, so I didn't get into that program, but my teacher told me about, and my mom gave me that talk. And so I was like, okay, it's not over yet. And I remember my teacher told me about another program called A Better Chance. And so when I found out about ABC, I did another round of PSATs. I had to do, cricket. I had to do testing, and I had to go to different schools. And, you know, it's a longer story, but by the end of it all, I ended up getting to go to Connecticut for high school. And it was such an amazing experience for me.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Okay. Your story fascinating, first of all, and definitely one of a kind. I know no one else who has ever wanted to go to boarding school, went to boarding school. There are a lot of negative connotations around it, and you just busted that stereotype wide open. Okay.
You. I mean, the power of television. Television is such a through line in my life, and so yeah, it was a fun ride.
I got you here. So because you call yourself, self-proclaimed nerd.
Yes.
So you always knew that you wanted to go to college. I mean, you always knew that you wanted to study.
Oh, absolutely. My mom it wasn't even like really a question I could have had. My mom grew up in a household where my grandma and my grandpa were very big on education. They understood the value of education, and they always wanted that for their children. And my mom kept that sense of education and the importance of it so strongly that she wanted to instill that onto her kids as well. And my dad similarly, my parents very much knew, especially where we came from, we didn't come from a lot kind of a thing. And so I think they knew how important education was for just my own success in life and my ability to be able to feel confident and strong in rooms. Right. And so it wasn't really a question if I could. So I think, it was nurturing in that way that, my parents, it was like, education is great. You're going to love it. And I did. And I enjoyed, like I said, TV was so great, but I also loved reading mystery, novels when I was a kid. And just this, just learning, learning was so much fun for me. And especially because when I would watch TV, it's kind of like the thing, you're learning a lot, whether it's the shows you're watching, the music you're listening to. So I definitely always loved school growing up, and my parents were a big part of that.
Okay. So listen, at any point, did you wrestle with, I guess, how can I articulate it? Because it's you knew you were going to study, but then you also knew that you had these creative things that you wanted to do, act and television and all that stuff. I mean, was there ever any sort of internal wrestling in terms of those two things not going together? Or did you know that studying was the way to get you there? Do you understand what I'm saying? Because some people feel like they wrestle with it and they have to make a choice.
Yeah. No, that was such a beautiful question. And you hit it at the tail end. I knew how much education was a vehicle to the goals that I had, right? And I think, again, my parents were big, really, really instilled that into me. I remember even when I was younger, my dad would tell me, because, so you can't tell from the screen or if you're listening, but I'm very tall. And, a lot of people would assume that I play basketball and do these other kind of things. And I was always on the fence. I wasn't the sporty kid. And I remember my dad once told me about doing basketball, but even seeing basketball as a way to get to where I want to go, right? You could get a scholarship, or you could. So I always knew how important it was to use the skills that I had to get to where I wanted to go. And I was skilled at school. I loved math, so it definitely was a vehicle to help get me closer to my goals. Yeah.
That's so good. That is a really healthy mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Your parents, man, your parents are amazing. They really help set you up in terms of being in the right mindset to think critically and see things from a perspective that everybody doesn't necessarily see at such young ages. Sometimes it takes a while to get to that.
Absolutely. And education also too is something that you can't take away from someone. Like you can't, and I think too, as a Black woman, as a Black family, like, and I don't even, and I don't even know if that's what my grandparents were thinking, because my grandparents, my grandma Curly's in her late 70s, so she was raised in the time of, you couldn't, she knew what it was like to be a Black person in America who wasn't encouraged to read, who wasn't encouraged to learn, who wasn't encouraged to have, these resources that would give them the ability to navigate rooms and spaces and feel confident in them. And so, I wonder, and I can't speak for my parents, but I wonder if that was a part of it too, like wanting to make sure that like I had something that no one could take away. Like, that, you can't challenge my mind. You could call me ugly, you could call me four-eyed, you could call me whatever you want. But at the end of the day, if I'm smart, I'm smart. So and I was bullied when I was younger, and well, I'm smart though.
You were bullied when you were younger, but you have been confident since you were young, so you weren't tripping, or were you?
Oh, no, I mean, in the beginning, I absolutely was. I remember, like, again, I'm over 6 feet, so I remember being, and I think I came out of the womb tall, and I just always grew. Like, I was just always like this tall kid, and so I remember I would always slunch a lot of the times, but also I was overweight
Mm.
when I was younger, and I do have the four eyes, so the material is out there for the people to, the young children in my class to use. But I remember, particularly with my height and feeling subconscious about it, people calling me giant and that kind of a thing. I remember my grandma. Oh, I'm so blessed with the family that raised me, because my grandma once told me, I don't know if she saw me slouching, if I was talking to her about it, but she once told me, you better put your, my grandma's from the South. So she's like, you better, put your shoulders back and stand up tall, and be proud of who you are. Be proud of your height. Be proud of your beauty. And that was such a pivotal moment for me as a young girl that I think helped to not have me be detrimentally affected by the bullying. And another thing too, my grandma said, which is currently also, and her giving me that advice is why I wear a lot of heels. And sometimes I'd be 6'7" in these streets, and just something like my grandma would want me to. But another thing my grandma told me that I think was really just magical advice to give to a young child to, I think, help grow empathy and understanding for others, is she would tell me, for your bullies who are being mean to you and not nice to you, and I know that it hurts your feelings, and that's not okay, but to recognize them, more often than not, the bullies have a home life unlike yours. They have situations and circumstances that are making them more angry or frustrated or mean or wanting to be unkind, and that what they were saying to me, how they were treating me, was less about me and who I was as a person and more about them and what they were going through, and to pray for them. Like my grandma straight told me to pray
Mm.
for your bullies when I was like a kid. And I think that was so important for me to hear, because she validated like how you're feeling is valid, and it's not okay that what they're saying to you. But me holding on to anger or frustration or wanting to get revenge or be mean back to them, that wouldn't do anything for my spirit, for my soul. And my grandma is a God-fearing woman, and so she just would tell me to pray for them. And that's a lesson I literally carry to this day. Like, I mean, so much to the point where, like, if somebody insulted me or would insult me, I would just say thank you. Like, oh, you were an ugly shirt, thank you. Like, I'm just like, I cannot control what is going on in your life and how you choose to project it into the world, but I can choose how I respond. And I'm gonna respond with a thank you and then keep it pushing.
Girl, I'm loving everything. Okay, I'm loving everything that you're putting down. Like,
Oh, thank you.
there have been a couple different things that you've shared where you have specifically talked about how you've been intentional, or the other person, whether it was your parents, your grandma, have been very intentional about acknowledging, recognizing, and allowing you to feel what you're feeling,
Mm, yeah,
and but letting that be separate from how you respond. And
exactly.
I think that is so big. I love that you got that lesson so early on in life.
Yeah. It was so, I think it was so foundational. And I think too, like, another thing with parents, and I had such incredible parents, and no parent is perfect. I grew later in life, you recognize that your parents are just humans too, trying to navigate this thing called life, their own journeys. And so, especially when it came to bullying and people who would be mean to you and things like that, like, you have to like, our parents aren't always with us, especially when we're in school. And honestly, I didn't tell my parents about being bullied when I was being bullied. Like I remember I told my
Oh.
mom after I had left, and she was like, "Why didn't you?" She was so upset that I hadn't shared it with her. And I think, a part of why I probably kept it to myself was because I didn't want to burden them. I didn't want to, I didn't want them to feel bad that I was feeling bad, kind of a thing. So it's very
Mhm.
interesting, even if your parents are creating a safe space for you at home, or instilling positive love and lessons into you, how we as children internalize different experiences and interactions, and how we try to like hold it in. And so I think I'm just grateful that, to what you were saying, that I had a support system that really gave me a great foundation to help me navigate, all that life brought and will
Yeah.
continue to bring.
Yes. All right, let's jump to the show. Let's jump to the show because I'm sure anyone that's listening wants to know about the show.
Yes,
Okay,
yes, yes.
because you've had so much success
Oh,
with the show.
yes, yes, yes.
Did you expect that? I mean, you've been writing for them for how many years, and look how successful it's been in such a short period of time.
I know it was such a whirlwind of an experience, especially coming to LA, wanting to be an actress and finding my uh, transition into writing, into how writing is such a foundational part of creating any show you see on television. And so when I joined the show, I joined as a script coordinator, and I had no idea what the show would become, that it would win an Emmy by the end of our, working on it. And I didn't even know when I went into it that I would even be given the privilege and the opportunity to write, 4 episodes for the show. Because as I wrote, my journey within the show was interesting in the best way. Because I started as a script coordinator. I got to write a couple of episodes, 4 episodes for the series as a whole. And then in that time as well, I was also promoted later, like within 2 years, to production coordinator, and then I ended on the show as a production manager. So my career really shifted and changed in 3.5 years on one project, which is a blessing in itself. And so, but I did know that the show was special when I first got the opportunity to learn about it. When
Mhm.
what two of my really good friends, told me about the opportunity that could be. And I wasn't sure if I was gonna get an interview or get a call. People tell you about, like, oh, this job might be coming down the pipe, but in the entertainment industry, you just never know when you'll hear back or if the thing will go. And so when I was first told about the show, I was told about this little black girl, this 8-year-old black girl who loved science and who was really smart and was unapologetic in her brilliance. And it was based off the book series Ada Twist Scientist, Rosie Revere Engineer, Iggy Peck Architect. These 3 separate books were used as the foundation of the show. So you have Ada and her 2 best friends, who just like take on the world, and who are just like are so smart and so curious. And even with Ada in the book that was written by the fabulous Andrea Beatty, who's amazing, she in the book that talks about how Ada couldn't even speak until she was 3, and the first thing she said was why. Like, she was just so curious. And also, I knew that it was being produced by co-produced by Netflix, Chris Nee, who's incredible and created Doc McStuffins for Disney, and then the Obama's company. So I mean, all the people in the kitchen were chefs, right? Like, chef kids. So there were so many different pieces where I had a feeling that it would be something special, but honestly, I could not have predicted the beauty of that experience,
Mm.
especially because it unfolded during a pandemic. I could not have anticipated the beauty of the whole thing in my life until I was going through it, and after it. So yeah.
Wow. What nugget, I guess, would you share with someone who is in a position where things are moving pretty rapidly, or
Mhm.
more, I would say, more quickly than they expected in terms of promotion or being, I mean, you were, because every time you're promoted, it's like it's an elevation to a degree, you know what I mean? So you just keep being elevated in what you're giving and what's being asked of you. And
Mm.
so what nugget would you have for somebody that, could help prepare them for when their time comes?
Yeah, great question. I think I could give so many, because I was I benefited so greatly from mentorship and from people with more experience pouring into me. And so I love pouring into young people when I can, and helping as they navigate, recognizing I'm still early in my career. But one thing I would say is to not be afraid to ask questions. Like to what you were saying about, promotion, like sometimes promotion comes with more money, it comes with different titles, it, comes with different, like you said, responsibilities. And I think being being comfortable with asking questions before you take an offer, or asking what are my responsibilities and what is the, like, I think just asking questions as it comes to when you're moving up, your rate. I also tell people, and I do it too, like talk to each other about what you're making, like talk to your other fellow people who are in the same position or you, or if they're not in that position, usually with, if you're in a, a kind community company, you have probably made connections with people who might be a step above you, right? A production manager or a writer already. And so reach out and ask them like, hey, like I just got this offer and this is what they're offering me. What have you gotten? So I think that's a really important thing that I would just encourage people, if they're moving, especially if they're moving fast and their title's changing and there's so much going on. I think it can be natural to want to be like, I'm just gonna be grateful that they offered me this thing and take, the first thing they give. And I think gratitude is important, and is essential for growth and just like, living beautifully from the inside out. But I think gratitude also be accompanied, it must be accompanied, in my opinion, with knowing your worth. Like you don't have to like ask for more and that makes you ungrateful, right? I think you can be grateful and also, ask questions and be aware of what you're doing and how it's changing.
Yes. So good.
Oh.
Okay, they can still hear us even though there's a little bit of a glitch. I don't know. It said that the internet was unstable, but that's okay.
No.
They can hear us. They can
Good.
hear us even if we might be frozen for a moment.
Oh, you see me? I guess they can't, but
well, they can see you frozen with a very passionate expression.
Oh, good.
Okay?
Oh, good. We love passion. Also, I do want to say, because I haven't said it yet, if anyone's heard me say cricket or fudge knuckles, I don't swear in daily life, and so I've created a bunch of little things to express my frustration in moments with more different words. So if you hear cricket or something, don't be worried. There's no crickets in studio. I just don't say curse words.
You better clarify. I love it. There's so many things. I mean, I loved you before because I know her, guys. Okay, but now I love you even more, like to the 10th power, to the infinity power. I'm just like, wow. I'm enamored by you. Okay, but I have a question. I got another question.
Yes.
All right. So when it comes to mentors, because you just talked about that, the importance of them.
Yeah.
The mentors that you have in your life now, did they happen organically? Were you intentional about going to somebody and saying, "Hey, could you be my mentor?" Or like, how did that roll out for you?
It did happen quite naturally, I must admit, particularly as it relates to, I mean, honestly, in all my life, like even when I was younger, and I, credit many of my teachers for being mentors, which is technically a teacher job anyway, but like feeling very personal to me. And that just happened because I think they saw something in me, God bless them, and helped to nurture it and push it through. But as it came to my career, it was quite more organic. Like the workspaces that I was in, I was just able to be around or gravitate. I think I really believe in energy, and I believe, kind, loving, genuine energy finds each other. And so when I was at General Hospital, and I started off as an intern, and I didn't know a lot of people, and the way that the show was worked, it's like most of the staff is, everyone's kind of in their offices. Like technically it's a television show, so there's a stage, but all the offices where the interns and the writers and the producers and everything is on its own floor. And I remember meeting someone I consider my first mentor in the industry. Her name was Nika. She actually recently passed away a few months ago. She was an incredible human and woman and producer at General Hospital. And my kind of journey to her becoming my mentor was so organic, in that we were both Jersey girls. She was from Jersey, I was from Jersey. And so there was just that instant connection. We were both Black women in a space where there weren't that many of us. So I think that too, she might have seen something in wanting to protect me. And she really did protect me. Like she was such a, she protected me, but she was also such a leader who led with love. Like she was always juggling a lot of different things. I mean, when you're a producer on a show, you know, you're always moving, but she would always treat everyone with such kindness and grace and love and patience, even in the fast pace of soap operas, which let me tell you, it is fast paced. They are, you know, soap operas come on every single day. So she was my first mentor, rest in peace. And it was just such an organic process. We had things in common, and she just really loved on me. And even after I ended up leaving General Hospital, we stayed in touch and we would go to our brunches, and, you know, I would text her when, you know, big things were happening for me, and she was always so supportive. And then when I moved away from General Hospital, again, it was also organic. I've been very lucky in this life because my direct boss, who was the showrunner of Ada, Cary Grant, who is an Emmy award-winning showrunner, you know, I got to put some respect on her name. She was someone too who, like, I didn't go in being like, you're going to be my mentor. But like when I went in as her script coordinator, we worked so closely together on a daily basis. And watching her lead rooms, because I would be in a lot of rooms with her. Once I felt like I got comfortable in my job and knew what I was doing, I asked if I could join certain rooms, even if I wasn't needed to be in there, just if I could shadow. And she was always so kind and generous with allowing me to do that. And so she, again, just naturally became another mentor for me, because also too, in that job, it happened during the pandemic. Like, I started that job January 2020, and then March it was like, go home, like the thing shut down. And again, by the grace of God, I was able to stay working because we were in animation. And with animation, you can you know, do scripts on, you could craft your scripts online, like everyone's, you know, doing their scripts. You could do table reads or via Zoom. Like, everyone kind of got inventive at the height of the pandemic. And so that was such an emotional time, and the way that she cared for people and the way that she checked in on us, you know, on a daily basis, when we would check in, like, hey, how you doing? Like, you know, what do you need? That was something that I just was like, oh my God, I want to like learn from you. And I was just naturally learning from her. And then also Chris Nee, who was an executive producer on Ada, Ada Twist, and also had, you know, other shows on Netflix, but again, you know, created Doc McStuffins. She also naturally became a really incredibly generous mentor to me as well, just in the way, you know, the advice that she would give. And her and Carrie had known each other for so long. So in some ways, Chris was a mentor to Carrie as well. And so I just felt really lucky in the way that I kind of found my mentors just through my professional journey. And I never, ever like directly, you know, emailed anyone, but I definitely recommend young people who are trying to get in, like, you know, if you can find someone's email on LinkedIn, or if you like, you know, it's always better to be referred if you know someone, but when you're starting out, you don't really know anybody, right? So
Right.
you know, I think it's, there's no shame in reaching out to people who you admire. But I will say this, and again, it's so unrelated because, you know, I'd be all over the place. But I will also say, when it comes to, you know, mentorship, the importance, it's also really important to network next to each other. Like, be talking to the peers that are around you, so that you guys can grow together. You know, I think sometimes young people, or when you're starting out in the industry, like, you want to go talk to Oprah, you want, you know, Mrs. Obama, like, you want to get to, you know, the people that you admire. But I think it's really important, and not to say that you won't get there, you won't be able to contact them or reach them, but I think it's important to also be connecting to people next to you too. Mentorship, peer growth, I think is really important.
Yes, I like that. Grow together.
Okay. I wanted to quote a line, but I forgot it, and I might Google it. Hold on, let me Google it real quick. I'm so sorry. I have it on my Lancer. Okay, so it's a song by Beyonce and Jay-Z, because they are peeps to follow. I like to I like to gain inspiration from those that I aspire to be, and I mean, they're incredible. I mean, Beyonce's work ethic alone is enough. But there's a line in it that I really love in Boss, and I wonder if the line has a curse word, because I might have to bleep myself. Okay, let's see.
Get your cricket ready. Get your cricket ready.
This was Jay-Z's bar, but it was, we measure success by how many people successful next to you. Here we say you broke if everybody is broke except for you, boss. And I love that line so much, because I think it's so important to be surrounded by people who we're all winning. You know, like, I don't want to be the most successful person in the room. Like, the pressure, like, I want to be inspired by people. I always jokingly say this, I'm like an energy sucker, and I don't mean it in like a really weird, you know, creepy way, but like in a way of, I really feed off of people's energy. Like, and even when people and I have conversations, we have a cook conversation, they're like, oh, that was so great. I'm like, that was only so great because you were giving. You was giving, I was giving off you, you was giving off me. And that's why we were able to have such a beautiful exchange. So yeah, so all that to say is I think it's really important to like be mindful about the circle you're building, and the love that your circle is giving to you should be matching the love you're giving to them.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Girl, this is so good. This conversation that we are having is so rich. Okay. You're
Oh,
talking about how you got goals to inspire. Well, you know what? Hashtag goals met. How about that?
oh
How
my
about
God,
that?
make me cry. I adore you. Like you are so like your smile alone just like warms my heart. So thank you.
Now listen, I am going to begin to start, landing the plane. But before I do got a couple more questions.
Oh
So,
my God, yes. I'll try to keep it,
because
listen, now, go ahead. Rapid fire. No, I'm kidding. Okay.
all right, because you talked about work ethic, but when we first started, you mentioned, your morning, and how you ground yourself, you prepare yourself, you put on your armor. Okay, loving it. My question to you is, because you obviously strike me as you must be disciplined, like you sticking to a schedule. So
Mm-hmm.
what is you're obviously writing on the job, okay? But
Mm-hmm.
outside of that, are like, what does that look like for you in terms of writing outside of the workplace and like keeping that creative fire going?
Yeah. So it's so interesting because actually, our last season of Ada dropped back in April, so I'm no longer writing for the show right
Mm,
now. And and with the transition in work, it was a thing of not having a routine for a really long time. And so I think being able to recognize your situation and to take stock of what it is you need. And some people like kind of like the spontaneity of the day, but to your point, you are very correct and observant. I am quite a disciplined human, the best that I can be. And so I really do enjoy routine. I enjoy schedule. So, for me, staying creative isn't just in writing. Like I'm a storyteller. I love telling stories. I love talking to people. And so whether it's in me, dancing, I think dancing is a way that I stay creative and tell stories, and I be in the gym by myself sometimes, just in the dance studio, like I'm over here in, somebody's music video. But I am the one in my head. And so yeah, so I like staying creative, and so like dancing, I've been actually talking recently about getting back into acting, going back to acting classes and nurturing that part of myself. And then also working on my own personal, stories and projects as it pertains to writing. But right now there's a strike going on, and so wanting to be just mindful and respectful of everything that's happening there. So yes, I've been feeding my soul creatively in less traditional writing ways as of now, but doing a lot of dancing and wanting to get back into acting and that kind of jazz. And then also too, just taking care of myself, because I will be a terrible creative if I'm not, drinking my lemon water and going to the gym when I get to it.
Drinking your lemon water. You know what? I just got a lemon oil, and
Ooh, like
it's amazing. Well,
did
I'm
you go
not gonna say the name because I ain't trying to pay. I mean, like,
respectfully? They need to send you the bottle so that you can
right, but because apparently, like pure lemon oil, okay, you
Mhm.
got to make sure it's pure. But you
Yeah.
put, a drop or two of that in your water, and
Mm.
it detoxes, and it smells so amazing.
Oh, oh,
You
that
have to,
sounds
you
so
have to try that.
good. Okay, you'll have to. We talk offline about
Yeah, we'll
what.
talk offline. We'll talk offline. But yeah, how did we get to that? Oh yeah, because you were saying you drink
Oh,
your
just my
water.
routine, like with everything going on with the WGA strike right now, I quite strongly stand with the writers, even though I'm not in the guild yet. One day, but yeah, so I'm not doing as much writing right now as I'm pouring into other creative energies.
Okay, so you know what? The next time that we have a conversation,
Hmm.
you gonna be in the you gonna be in it. You gonna be part of it.
Oh my gosh, yeah! Oh my lantern, love it.
How about
Yes.
that?
Listen, I'm ready. I'm ready. Oh my god! Honestly, like we talked about this. I was so nervous just because I think I'm also a perfectionist. I must not lie, and so just so, and I think that attributed to my nerves, wanting to be a good guest for you and to be honest and open and not be so scared and nervous about it. So I'm having the best time. So honestly, I will talk for as long as you want. Whatever you want. Let me know.
Yes. Well, you know what? You are amazing. And I'm so grateful and appreciative and happy that you said yes in spite
Thank
of,
you.
the nerves
Listen,
and
you got to walk past fear because fear will stop you from your blessings. Okay,
every
let me
time.
every single
Every
time,
time.
and it's something that we all experience. Like it's such a universal concept, fear, and I think
Mhm.
it's something that is important for people to identify and be able to say like, oh, that's what that is. Like sometimes we're like, oh, why haven't I, gotten to the gym in a while? Why haven't I done this? Or why haven't I, sent out those emails I wanted to do? Or like we wonder why we aren't getting closer to our goals, and oftentimes it is fear manifesting in different ways, whether it's self-sabotage or whether it's self-doubt that just makes you think I can't even start, why start? And so
Mhm.
I like to name things, and I think naming the fear in your life and wanting to get past it. And so this was honestly like something that I was like, I'm going to do this because I love talking. I love genuine people like yourself. I love conversing about life and, everything that goes into trying to be the best you can be. And so I'm really glad that I chose to walk past fear and actually forget past it through it, because you guys are going through things. Sometimes we try to go over, under, around, skydive above, but you got to go through. In my opinion, you got to go through pain, heartache, fear, sadness, joy, all of it, because you're supposed to feel it. We have to. So yeah, so I'm glad
It's
I
par-
chose
it's it's
fear.
part of life, like, sometimes people live their life and they're trying to avoid the very things that make it life.
Yeah,
Like you cannot think you're going to live this life and not experience heartbreak. Like it's going to happen,
yeah,
but
absolutely.
it's crazy. I think, oh, didn't somebody write a book called Just Do It Afraid or Do It Afraid?
Essentially,
I feel like somebody did,
okay.
or something, some book about like fear. Anyway,
Mhm.
but I think fear can be real tricky because a lot of times people will recognize the larger fears, the obvious ones,
Yeah,
but it's like those small ones. It's like the small fears that you don't even realize it's a fear. It's,
yeah.
and you think it's just like really something very, like something very small. Like,
Hmm.
I'm not going to go talk to that person over there. Just, not, I don't really have a reason, but really the
Right.
underlying reason is you're afraid.
Absolutely. When I feel uncomfortable or something, I'm like, I need to figure out what this is. Like, and I think, to what you're saying, it's like we might not even have the words to what it is we're feeling, but we can tell our discomfort. And we just want so quickly to get out of it. We sometimes don't even
Mhm.
address it. And I think it's really important to address the moments where when we're feeling discomfort, even if it's not in the moment, because obviously in the moment you're probably already vulnerable. You might be in a public space, so you don't want to, address anything in the moment, but sometimes go home afterwards and be like, hey, I could feel something. What was that? What was it about me? Because at the end of the day, you can't really control people, and you can't control how they think of what they think about you, how they feel about you. All you can control, I like to say, or I got this from someone, so I can't even claim it. But the two things you can control, I like to give credit where it's due, is how you prepare for what might happen and how you
Mhm.
respond to what does happen. So when you are uncomfortable, how you respond to that discomfort is so important, to name it, to acknowledge it, and to move through it so you can get to your more joyful moments that will also be temporary, that you'll get to move through, with a smile and a glisten in your eye. Yeah.
Spoken like a true queen has who has experienced some things, okay?
Um,
Oh my goodness. All right, so what's next for you? I mean, what are you goaling towards?
Yeah. So for me, I think honestly, like wanting to get back into acting, into my performative life, as well as it involves wanting to learn more about producing and writing for live action. And those kinds of things are goals that I have. My big goal one day is to have a talk show for sure. Just because honestly, I just love connection. I love being able to create a space that allows for people to share and to be open and to feel comfortable, like the one you've created for me today. And so yeah, so that's like a very long goal, but also to just trying to, to what we talked about earlier, to bring it back full circle, because I love a bow at the top, of really just trying to put good into the world, like inspiring content, right? Like I don't think storytelling for me is linear. I don't think it just comes out in writing or hosting or acting. But it comes in just me being intentional with the things that I put my heart into. And, I have my Instagram channel, Nurture with Niya, that I started during the pandemic because I was like, oh my Lanta, there's so much going on right now. Like, and I just wanted to put a little bit of good back into the world. So I started that page where I post inspirational quotes and some videos and also using it as a space for me to be honest about the ways that I nurture myself, whether it's the gym or, honestly, just restocking my fridge. There is nothing like a good fridge restock. It's just, putting all the cans in the right order. So I think that, what's next for me, I definitely have plans and goals, but that saying that you make a plan and God laughs. So I'm definitely just going to keep, headed toward where I want to go, where I feel like I'm meant to be, and pour light into the world in the different ways that I can, until the next opportunity presents itself.
Yes. Well, you know what? That was a wonderful way to put a bow on this episode. I mean, that's the perfect way to wrap it up. Oh my goodness. If anybody, you did just drop something, a Nurture with Niya. So
yes, Nurture with Niya on Instagram. I just think, and just to untie the bow and bow back up, just this idea of nurturing, like I think it's a word that I love so deeply, and not even just in the nurturing of self, because I think the nurturing of self must be foundational in the way it just informs the way you love your family, your romantic partner, your friends, your siblings. So self-love is such a big thing for me, but also nurturing the different relationships in your life, nurturing your career, nurturing all the different elements that make you who you are, I think is really important. So Nurture with Niya is the
Nurture with Niya. Listen, I'm here for Nurture. We had that on the website because that's what we do. Yeah. We nurture artists.
Yes, which is,
and then we got some
thing. So I just want to just give you your virtual flowers, because what you're doing and the space you're creating and the platform you're giving people to share their stories and to be honest, and vulnerable when I know it isn't always easy for some people, is a really incredible thing. So kudos to you, Melissa. Thank you for having me.
Those are our first virtual flowers that we got.
Why? I hope you get many, many more, because you and your team, you guys deserve it.
Oh, thank you so much. Wow. All right, you guys. Well, you know what? It's so hard. It's so hard to say goodbye. Okay. It's so hard to say goodbye. But you know what? We're going to have you back. Okay, we're gonna have you back.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, we definitely must. But you guys, you have been listening to For the Artist. I've been talking to Niya Wright. You spell her first name Niya. So if you are trying to find her on social media, Nurture with Niya, make sure you spell that correctly. Okay. Yes, so until next time, you already know what it is. I want you to keep creating from the inside out. Much love and peace, y'all. Bye.